The Vizier's summons. Previously on, the Aletheia crossed the Pillars of Hercules and sailed southward, where the ocean meets an African river at a mouth that seems to connect continents that should never have been separated. There, before Carthaginian guards who patrolled those waters with the authority of men serving an empire that tolerates no foreign audacity, it was Helena, not Alexander, not weapons, not any argument, who dissolved the confrontation with a presence that exceeded every category those guardians possessed to classify what they were encountering. The fishing was granted, the river taught, and when the Aletheia raised her sails to continue northward, she carried something that was not on the manifest, proof, definitive and undeniable, that certain forces moving the world are rarely the ones warriors can see. In this new episode, we will discover together how destiny calls them again, this time beneath the burning sun of the Great Mansa's lands, through an emissary who emerges from the desert mists carrying an invitation that admits no refusal, because it comes not from a man, but from a throne. And thrones speak with the authority of things built to outlast any individual who occupies them. Helena will be received as a sacred presence at a banquet where alliances are sealed not in contracts, but in glances between those who recognize each other as equals. Princess Makeda will join the Aletheia's journey, not as a passenger, but as a force with a destiny of her own, still discovering its shape. Two vessels will depart side by side, the Oasis of Moonlight alongside the Aletheia, guided by the oath of the wind that both crews will speak without knowing they are speaking it, simply by pressing forward together toward the north where Thule begins, at last, to reveal that it always knew they were coming. The Vizier Tam's summons. Dawn had only just stained the river's waters amber when the sound arrived, and it was not the sound of wind, nor of birds, nor of anything that belonged to that African riverbank. It was rhythm, metallic, measured, and rising, the kind of rhythm that announces not danger, but power. The drums and hoofbeats echoed between the hills with that quality of sound that comes from far away, yet grows faster than anything moving should grow, as if the distance between the sound and its source was shrinking, not because the source was approaching, but because the sound had a will of its own to be heard before visual confirmation could arrive. The morning mist still blanketed the camp when the caravan emerged from the haze, dromedaries adorned with red and gold cloth in a formation that was not a procession, but a declaration, flanking an ornate carriage whose wheels raised dust that glittered in the rising sun, as if even the African earth recognized the authority of what moved upon it. Alexander straightened his posture with that specific instinct of those who have learned that when destiny approaches in the form of a cortege, the bearing of the one who receives it is the first message sent. From inside the carriage descended a man of upright bearing and sharp gaze, Vizier Tam, wrapped in blue robes embroidered in gold with that richness of material that is not ostentation but code, a language that men of power use to communicate rank before a single word becomes necessary. His presence radiated authority with that quality belonging to people so accustomed to being obeyed that the possibility of not being obeyed does not even appear as a hypothesis on their perceptual horizon. Approaching Alexander with a brief reverence that was at once respect and warning, he announced in a firm voice, "The Great Mansa invites the royal goddess who accompanies this crew to a banquet at his palace. The invitation comes from the throne, and the throne does not know refusal." Silence. The sailors exchanged glances with that wordless communication of those who do not know what is happening but recognize that something is happening which exceeds every familiar category. Alexander understood the misunderstanding at once. The Vizier was speaking of Helena, mistaking her for a foreign divinity, perhaps because of the aura that had surrounded her since the encounter with the Carthaginians, and he responded with a courtesy that was also a gentle correction. "The royal goddess to whom you refer is Helena, my wife, my companion, and the commander of my soul. And to you who accompany this crossing, who enter with us this territory where thrones and destinies recognize each other before words find form to name the recognition, I leave a simple but essential request. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your comment sharing what you feel. Every gesture of yours is a flame added to the others, strengthening the invisible current that unites hearts across time and the mysteries that await revelation. In doing so, you do not merely support this work, you become part of this tapestry. The story continues, and it is your presence that keeps the fire alive. The Vizier, caught off guard by the answer, like one who receives an unexpected reply to a riddle he had considered simple, held his composure with the skill of seasoned diplomats who have learned that surprise is information, not a reason to reveal that one has been surprised. He ordered his retinue to wait and let his gaze rest upon the anchored trireme with the studied appraisal of someone examining an object that fits no previously available category. Alexander, sensing that the moment called not for argument, but for gesture, went to find Helena. When she appeared, dressed in white robes that caught the morning light, her presence silenced even the most seasoned warriors with that quality of silence that is not imposed, but rises spontaneously whenever something exceeding the ordinary appears. The Vizier bowed at once, recognizing that, whether goddess or woman, she radiated something the language of men could not name precisely, yet which the body recognizes before the mind finds words for the recognition. "The Great Mansa wishes to receive you at a banquet," Tam declared, now in a reverent tone. Helena smiled with the particular grace of those who understand that certain invitations are also destinies, and nodded. "Tell your lord that we accept." Alexander drew close, and the look they exchanged was complete. Adventure was calling them again, this time by a name they had never used before. The procession to the Palace of the Sun. There was something in the second trumpet call that sounded different from the first. The first had announced arrival, the second announced distinction, and distinctions, in kingdoms that use protocol as sacred language, communicate more than any speech ever could. Barely had the acceptance settled in the air when Vizier Tam raised his hand, and from the eastern mists emerged a second carriage. A vehicle of dark carved wood bearing symbols of spirals and solar birds, sheltered beneath a baldachin of amber silk that poured over the road, the gleam of thick honey, 4 impeccably harnessed dromedaries leading the procession, while servants wearing turquoise bead necklaces walked alongside, scattering perfumed grains of incense with that ritual precision of gestures learned with the awareness that every detail carries intention. "For the goddess Helena," Tam announced with a solemnity that was not performance but recognition, the language of protocol being used not to impose hierarchy, but to honor a presence that had been identified as exceeding common categories. Alexander felt his heart waver between pride and that particular vigilance of love that is not jealousy but heightened attention. In the invitation, there was regal tenderness, but also the gravity of encounters that alter courses. And he recognized both qualities with the precision of the navigator who reads not only the visible wind, but the invisible currents the wind carries within it. The procession moved like a constellation in march. At the front, lancers with copper plumes clearing the way. Behind them, drummers keeping a beat that recalled the pulse of an ancient heart, unhurried but absolutely constant. The road wound between palm groves and cultivated terraces where women sang harvest melodies with that quality of song not composed for an audience, but which rises when the body finds rhythm with what it is doing. Children interrupted their games to watch the gleaming carriage, and some, overcome by wonder, knelt with the spontaneity of reverence that is never taught, but which emerges when something sufficiently beautiful passes, and the body simply knows what to do. Alexander rode close to the wheel of Helena's carriage, attentive to her every gesture, sensing that this land was receiving them the way one receives a chapter that had always been missing from one's own story. Inside the carriage, the world seemed filtered through liquid gold, the baldachin's fabric letting light pour in as veils that transformed the African landscape into something belonging simultaneously to the real and the dreamed. Fragrances of resin and dried fruit mingled together, and small bells fastened to the handrails chimed at the slightest sway with that accidental music of things not made to produce melody, yet which do produce it when they move with sufficient grace. Helena recalled Tiphys's tales of distant kingdoms where hospitality was a sacred art, and she understood that in these lands, the act of welcome was also a form of power, not to domesticate the stranger, but to enchant, not to humiliate, but to elevate, so that the bridge between worlds is born without bloodshed and outlasts any treaty any diplomat could draft in any tongue. When the walls of the Palace of the Sun finally appeared, they did so not merely a stone in height, but as a materialized idea. Towers of polished clay reflecting the sky in opaline blades, courtyards with shallow pools multiplying the clouds, copper-inlaid portals telling in relief battles won without a sword, abundant harvests, tamed rivers, pacified souls. The great door opened with the sigh of a harp. There, on the threshold between sand and cool shadow, began not merely a banquet, but a chapter where love and diplomacy would dance beneath the same star. The Banquet of the Rising Sun. The Great Mansa rose when Helena entered, not because protocol demanded it, but because certain presences make it impossible to remain seated. The monumental gate opened with a sound as deep as the stirring of an ancient creature, and Helena was the first to cross it. The light reflected off the sandstone walls, transforming the floor into a golden mirror with that specific magic of architectures conceived to transform those who pass through them, which use stone and light and angle as instruments of something exceeding civil construction. From above, rows of silk pennants shivered in the warm Saharan winds, and the scent of spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, and honey enveloped the air with that density of aromas that do not merely enter through the nostrils, but seem to alter the quality of the air entire, making it more real, more present, more laden with meaning. The Great Mansa waited in the central hall surrounded by columns carved with the stories of a people who had mastered rivers and deserts. His throne of ebony and ivory, bearing an imposing figure whose eyes reflected the afternoon gold with that quality of gazes that have seen enough things to understand that most of what is seen is not what it appears to be. When Helena entered, the murmur of the court ceased with that quality of silence not imposed, but rising when everyone present simultaneously recognizes that something exceeding the ordinary is taking place. The sovereign rose, walked a few steps forward, and smiled with the serenity of one who recognizes an omen, not of something supernatural, but of the order of the world manifesting in exactly the way it had promised to manifest. "The Son of the North has come to visit the Son of the South," he said, his voice echoing like distant thunder with that quality of voices used across decades to be heard in vast halls by people who needed convincing, and which had thus become instruments of natural authority, not forced. Helena inclined her head in respect, and Alexander did the same, not in submission, but in reverence for the power that manifested here in harmony with what it was, needing no demonstration of what it was. The hall was taken over by musicians, thin-skinned drums pulsing like heartbeats, bamboo flutes casting notes that seemed like serpents dancing in the air, dancers with bronze anklets moving to the rhythm of the earth with that specific quality of movements learned not in any academy, but across generations of bodies that had danced the same dance before. The Great Mansa raised his cup and addressed the hall. "Today, we celebrate the meeting of paths, that of the sea and that of the desert, that of the wind and that of the word." His words were solemn, yet carried poetry within them. Turning to Helena, he added, "The gods warned me of your coming. They told me that a woman arrived from the waters would bring with her the balance between strength and gentleness. Helena responded with a grace and clarity that came not from rehearsal, but from one who knows the worth of words and therefore uses them with that specific economy of those who understand that saying less with precision equals saying more with abundance. She spoke of the auroras that dance above Thule's frozen seas, of the courage of the men of the north and the wisdom of the women who tend the fire through the long winter nights. The hall listened in a silence that was reverence, and even the Great Mansa leaned forward slightly, as if the images of those distant lands were flashes of a sacred world that had existed before any map had recorded it. "In your gaze there is the brilliance of ice and the flame of the sun," he said, "and whoever contemplates both understands the truth of balance." The banquet continued among music and laughter, but beneath the surface vibrated a deeper energy, that of the recognition between equals who had arrived at the same point by radically different paths and who, upon meeting, discovered that the point had always been the same. The Great Mansa's friendship and Alexander's oath. There are conversations that happen between people, and there are those that happen between destinies, which use people as mediums so that greater forces may communicate through the language the physical world offers. The night advanced over the desert like a deep blue veil, and the palace blazed with the glow of torches lit in long rows when the Great Mansa broke the silence that had settled between him and Alexander. That specific stillness of moments when two leaders recognize they are in the presence of an equal, and therefore set aside the performances that ordinarily serve as protocol. They say the ocean is a mirror of the gods. Tell me, Captain of the North, what have you seen in its depths? Alexander set down his cup with that deliberate slowness of one who is about to answer with what he truly believes, not with what would be strategically useful to say. "The sea teaches, Your Majesty. It grants nothing without first testing the heart of whoever faces it. It has taken brothers from me, but it has also given me wisdom. In every wave there is a secret, in every storm, a truth. I learned that to command is not to dominate, it is to listen, and whoever listens to the sea listens to himself." The Mansa heard him with an attentiveness that exceeded courtesy, with that quality of attention belonging to those who recognize that things rarely said with such honesty are being said, and a gleam of admiration crossed his face. Two distant worlds understood each other without need of translation, because deep truths need no translation, belonging as they do to a layer of experience that precedes any specific tongue. From the space behind the marble columns, Makeda appeared, daughter of the Great Mansa, accompanied by her guardian Amina. With that entrance not planned to be dramatic, yet dramatic for precisely that reason, for the naturalness with which she arrived at the moment that had been waiting to be lived. In Makeda's eyes, there burned the brilliance of youth mingled with the mystery of dunes at dusk, that specific combination of one who does not yet fully know what she is, but who already feels, with a clarity that admits no doubt, that she is something larger than the space where she grew up could contain. Upon seeing Helena, she stopped mid-step, seized by a curiosity that was at the same time recognition, that disconcerting sensation of meeting for the first time someone one has somehow always known. She approached with reverence and smiled. "You are the woman I have heard so much about, the one who calmed the river and transformed the gaze of men." Helena rose and received her with a sisterly gesture, and between the two of them, in that wordless instant, was born the kind of friendship that requires no long history because it recognizes rather than builds. Makeda sat beside Helena, enchanted by every word about the lands of the north, about seas of ice and auroras that dance like spirits across the sky. "I want to see that world with my own eyes," said the princess in a firm voice carrying the fire of one who had always known she would have to leave, but who only in that moment had found the specific direction toward which leaving made sense. The Great Mansa offered a paternal smile that was also unease. the particular unease of fathers who recognize in a daughter something that exceeds what a father's love can hold. The sea is treacherous, my daughter. It does not bow to kings or to crowns. Makeda did not retreat. Then, that is precisely why I wish to know it. What is a throne before the horizon? Alexander, perceiving the emotion in the sovereign's gaze, bowed with respect that was genuine. Your Majesty, if one day you trust your daughter to the sea, I promise to care for her as the most precious of jewels. I swear by the name of the winds and by the honor of my crew that no danger will touch her under my command. The Great Mansa held him in a long gaze, that gaze which passes through words and measures the substance of whoever speaks them. Then, rising before the whole assembly, then let the pact be made. Between the kingdom of sand and the kingdom of waters, a friendship is born today, sealed by courage. The drums resounded, the torch flames seemed to dance in reverence, and the desert and the sea had been united, not in contract, not in treaty, but in that form of alliance more enduring than any document, the one born when two leaders look at each other and recognize a soul that honors what it promises. The departure of Princess Makeda. There are farewells that are merely physical separations, and there are those that are rites of passage, moments in which the person departing for unknown destinations and the person remaining are separated not only physically, but existentially, because both understand that what departs will not return in the same form. Dawn rose above the palace towers like a silent blessing with that specific light of mornings that follow great decisions, no brighter than other mornings, but sharper, as if the world had resolved to offer maximum visibility so that what was about to happen might be seen with all the clarity it deserved. The people gathered along the walls, on balconies, and in the squares to witness what few would have dared imagine. The departure of Princess Makeda, daughter of the Great Mansa, bound for the unknown she had chosen with that firmness of choices that come not from reasoning, but from something older, more fundamental, something that people who have grown up close to power learn to recognize as a calling. The Great Mansa stood before the Great Bronze Gate, dressed in a deep blue mantle that shimmered in the sunlight with that dignity of moments when one who governs is being governed by something greater than himself. Before him, Makeda, dressed in golden robes adorned with bead and turquoise necklaces, seemed the very personification of dawn itself, not because she had been dressed to appear so, but because she had arrived at the moment when a person's inner and outer selves converge with sufficient completeness that the image she projects is simply the truth of what she is. Father, she said, in a clear voice that needed no volume to carry the weight of its words, I do not leave in disobedience, but in answer to a calling. If the stories of the gods of the north are true, I want to learn from the winds what the throne cannot teach. The sovereign lowered his face, and in the silence that followed, the world seemed to hold its breath with that quality of silences that occur when truth is spoken with sufficient precision that no adequate response exists except the recognition that it has been spoken. Helena drew close, and Makeda took her hands. Teach me to look at the sea the way you look at it, the princess asked. Teach me to find beauty even in danger. Helena smiled with tenderness and gravity, that combination that exists only between those who love deeply enough not to protect one from what must be faced. The sea is a mirror, Makeda. It shows what lies within us. If you depart with fear, you will see storms. If you depart with trust, you will see paths. The two held each other's gaze for a long moment, and something deep sealed between them, a bond that transcended their recent friendship, as though there were recognition of a tie that had existed before the physical encounter, which the encounter had merely revealed. Amina, the princess's guardian, watched in silence with the bearing of a loyal shadow, not passive, but absolutely present, ready to protect Makeda, even should the sea attempt to tempt her away. Alexander knelt before the Great Mansa in a gesture that required no words, yet he spoke them all the same. "I swear again by the honor of the sea, the princess will be under my protection." The sovereign nodded, and a quiet tear glimmered in his eyes, not from weakness, but from faith, that specific quality of tears shed by those who love deeply enough to let go. In the distance, anchored in the calm waters of the river, waited the Mansa's gift, a vessel of dark hull and white sails, named the Oasis of Moonlight, not merely a ship, but a materialized promise that the throne had entrusted to the sea what it held most precious. When the gates opened and the procession advanced toward the dock, while the people sang ancient hymns and petals were cast upon the road, the Great Mansa raised his hand from the walls and spoke the final words that crossed the space between father and daughter like an invisible thread that the departure would not cut. "Go, my daughter, and carry with you the light of our people." And the two vessels, side by side, began to move. And so, beneath the gaze of the rising sun, the desert and the sea said their farewell in unison. The two vessels and the oath of the wind. There are moments when two forces that were separate recognize each other as parts of the same pattern. The Aletheia and the Oasis of Moonlight, sailing side by side for the first time, had that quality. Not of one ship following another, but of two halves of something that had finally found its complete form. The sun rose slowly over the river, casting upon the waters a golden reflection that made the vessels appear to be floating flames. The Aletheia, veteran of seas and storms, exhaling the wisdom of old voyages in every mark of noble wear. The Oasis of Moonlight gleaming and new, shining with that intensity of things not yet tested, which for that very reason possessed the specific perfection of potential not yet realized. The sailors adjusted the sails and sang departure chants, while Alexander, standing at the prow, felt the wind touch his face with that familiarity of a presence that had always been available and that needed only to be recognized for its partnership to become complete. Helena, at the railing, watched Makeda and Amina board the Oasis of Moonlight. The princess, with eyes that held the brilliance of mornings of discovery mingled with the longing that precedes every true departure. Amina, moving with the quiet certainty of one who knows the world's dangers and trusts only in loyalty and instinct. Meeting Helena's gaze, Amina gave a slight nod, a simple gesture laden with meaning that exceeded its appearance. Two women, two guardians, recognizing each other in a mutual respect that was the forerunner of a feminine alliance that would sustain the balance between faith and destiny when the sea decided to test their hearts. The wind, gentle until then, began to find its voice with that progression of winds that have purpose. It blew first from the east, then from the north, as if the elements were contending for the privilege of guiding the ships, only to reach the agreement that the correct direction was northward, where Thule was waiting. Alexander raised his face and closed his eyes, feeling the calling of the winds with that receptiveness he had developed over enough crossings to know that the sea communicates with those willing to receive rather than merely to transmit. "They have approved our departure," he said. And Helena smiled with that smile of those who have always known the universe was paying attention and who now had one more confirmation. At the captain's command, the oars plunged into the water, and the sound of human effort mingled with the song of the wind, sealing a pact between man, sea, and mystery with that solemnity which needs no ceremony because the action itself is the ceremony. As the delta fell behind them, both ships began to feel the living force of the ocean, the river's calm, sweet waters giving way to salt and vastness with that transition which has no precise line, because river and sea meet gradually, not abruptly, like two modes of being that blend before they separate completely. Makeda, leaning against the railing of the new ship, looked back, watching the African coast diminish with that quality of gazes that know they are recording an image to be carried as a memory for a time that has not yet taken definite shape. "It is strange, Amina," she murmured. "Leaving the land that watched me be born is like tearing away a piece of one's own heart." The guardian replied in a serene voice, "But it is the heart that chooses to leave, princess, and the gods favor the brave." The afternoon was advancing when Helena placed her hand over her chest and whispered to the wind, "May our courses never part." Alexander completed the vow, "And may the winds of friendship blow even through the storms." And so, beneath the fading light, the two vessels pressed onward together toward the unknown. The oath of the wind, spoken without knowing it was an oath, simply by moving forward together toward what had been calling them all along. The crossing of the currents and the omen of the lights. The sea changed color before it changed temperament. First, the translucent blue of the south became deep green, then gray, then silver, as if the ocean were revealing progressive layers of itself, each one closer to its deepest nature and further from anything any nautical chart had ever recorded. In the days that followed, the sea became a labyrinth of ever-shifting mirrors, hidden currents serpentining beneath the surface with that submerged life of forces that operate below what any human instrument can directly detect, manifesting only in the effects they produce on the surface, in the way the hull responds, in the way the waves assume patterns that correspond to no visible wind. The Aletheia held its course like a heart beating in rhythm with the universe. The Oasis of Moonlight followed close behind, cutting through the foam with a youthful elegance that was at once promise and challenge. Promise of what it would be capable of once it had sufficient experience. Challenge in assuming a position that demanded what it was still learning to possess. Helena observed the metamorphosis of the waters with the eyes of one who reads ancient signs that she had learned in no book, for they belong to a category of knowledge that cannot be transcribed, only recognized when it presents itself. "These currents are not natural," she murmured. "They are the boundaries of the world." And Alexander, upon hearing her, consulted the astrolabe. The winds indicated northeast, but the sea insisted on pushing them north. It was as if an invisible force, older than any compass, were summoning them. Helena knew the name of that summons. On the third night, the ocean showed its true face with that revelation of storms that arrive not as enemies, but as examiners, waves rising in luminous arcs, wind roaring with that voice of things testing resistance before deciding what to do with what they find. The two vessels danced amid the chaos with that specific dance of well-built ships that do not fight the waves but hold dialogue with them. On the deck of the Aletheia, Helena remained standing, eyes fixed on the horizon with that stillness of those who are simultaneously in the place where they are and in a place that exceeds physical coordinates. Amid the churning waters, she saw something, a distant shimmer, a light flickering like fire beneath the surface, not the reflection of lightning, not the bioluminescence of a marine organism, but something belonging to an entirely different category, with the quality of a response rather than a random phenomenon. Aboard the Oasis of Moonlight, Makeda woke suddenly with a racing heart. "Amina, did you see the light?" The guardian drew close. "It is not flame, princess. It is the sea that speaks." The words sounded more like prophecy than comfort. And there, between lightning and fog, flashes formed that danced in spirals, color indefinite, a fusion of blue and gold, as if the sky itself had poured its soul upon the waters. The lights of Thule, of which only those who had returned could speak, and of those there were few. Alexander ordered both vessels to reduce speed. The storm was beginning to dissolve, but the air still vibrated with the electricity of something that had happened exceeding the physics of squall and waves. Helena approached the captain with eyes that reflected the same ethereal light dancing over the sea. "These are the gates of Thule," she whispered. "They open only for those who come in peace." Alexander drew a deep breath. Then we will sail with a clean heart." The wind ceased, and the sails hung in a stillness that was at once conclusion and opening. From within the clouds, a beam of light emerged, thin as a harp string, that touched the surface of the ocean and multiplied into thousands of reflections that enveloped both vessels. The sea becoming glass, the wind becoming melody, the sailors kneeling with that spontaneity of reverence that was not planned but which rises when the body understands before the mind catches up to what stands before it. "If these are the lights of Thule," said Alexander, "then the gods have approved our crossing." And the ocean answered with a flash that illuminated the entire night, the first omen that the North had begun to call them by name. The Voices of the North. The calm that followed the storm was not an absence of movement. It was a presence of listening, as if the entire ocean had decided it was time to hear rather than speak, and was waiting for those who sailed upon it to do the same. The sea suspended between sleep and wakefulness, the vessel's sails motionless, holding the silence with that quality of stilled sails that are not merely fabric without wind, but materialized expectation. Helena walked the deck with slow steps, feeling the changed air, that wild freshness arriving from the north, distant but undeniable, like the breath of mountains no one aboard had seen, but which all would recognize upon arrival, because certain fragrances belong to a memory that precedes experience. That night, she slept, and in the dream, she stood on a surface of ice extending to infinity, the sky above her a veil of dancing lights, greens, violets, golds, exactly as Tiphys had described on winter nights that now seemed to have been preparation rather than recollection. From the depths of the ice, voices whispered her name in a tongue she did not comprehend with the mind, but recognized with the heart. With that quality of recognition that needs no translation because it operates below the level at which languages diverge. One voice, clearer than the rest. What you seek is not at the journey's end, but in the mirror of the path. When she woke, her body trembled with that specific trembling of those who return from places more real than ordinary dreams, who carry in their muscles the memory of where they have been. Helena went to the prow. The sea still slept, but the surface exhaled a subtle radiance, as if a submerged constellation were reflecting beneath the waves. Alexander approached in silence with that presence of those who know they are not needed to complete what the other person is living, but who can stand alongside without disturbing. "Did you dream?" Helena answered. "Yes, and the voices called me by a name that does not yet belong to me, but which is waiting for me." He did not fully understand, but he did not question, because he had learned over sufficient time that when Helena spoke this way, the world was listening for reasons only the journey would reveal. Aboard the Oasis of Moonlight, Makeda had also woken under the same premonition. She rose, walked to the edge of the ship, and felt the sea call her with that quality of callings that have no identifiable source, that come from a direction the body senses, but no instrument can triangulate. Small luminous sparks began to appear in the foam around both ships, moving like living creatures, the same radiance as the lights of Thule, now transformed into voice and presence encircling them like a ring of recognition. The sparks spread around both vessels, connecting them like threads of liquid gold, and the sailors, woken by the phenomenon, drew close to the railings with wide-eyed wonder of that quality which is not fear but openness, a readiness to receive what exceeds what maps and available categories can accommodate. Alexander ordered silence. Helena closed her eyes and extended her hands, feeling the invisible field that united the sea, the wind, and the hearts of those present. "This is not danger," she said with that firmness of conviction that requires no additional evidence, because the evidence is already present for those who know how to receive it. "These are messengers." The lights answered her words, rising in columns that climbed toward the sky, and everyone witnessed the impossible. reflections of frozen cities, mountains shrouded in mist, a luminous bridge rising to the north. Helena fell to her knees, overtaken by tears that were not of sorrow, but of arrival. Those specific tears that emerge when something sought long enough to be mistaken for a dream finally reveals that it was real. The path is open. Follow the light that does not burn. Follow the wind that does not wound. Makeda, on the other ship, raised her arms to the sky with the complete openness of one who has nothing left to protect because she is wholly surrendered to what has arrived. The waters call me by a name I do not yet know. The two women, separated by waves, felt the same calling, the awakening of something sacred, the echo of the voices of the north announcing that the journey had only just begun. The call of the aurora. The light that arrived that morning was not golden, not blue. It was a subtle white, almost transparent, that made the sea appear as a liquid mirror between worlds. The aurora of a place unlike any they had crossed, a light belonging to a latitude none of them had ever breathed before. The following dawn was born with that different light that had left in the air a trail of electricity and the scent of rain, with that quality of air after a phenomenon that exceeded meteorology. The wind returned, now coming from the north, gentle and constant like a hand that guides without pushing, as if the entire path ahead were becoming easier to recognize as they advanced, as if Thule were shortening the distance rather than passively waiting for them to arrive. Alexander, standing on the deck, watched the sails fill with that sensation that it was not they who were conducting the sea, but the sea that was conducting them. The difference between navigating and being navigated being precisely that sense that direction need not be chosen because it has already been chosen by something that knows the destination better than any compass. Helena, standing at the prow with her hair loose in the wind, was not looking at the horizon with hope. She was looking at it with certainty, the specific quality of the gaze of one who no longer searches, but recognizes. "There is land ahead," she said without hesitation. "I can smell the stones and the resin of the trees." There were no birds, no visible coastline, and yet Alexander believed her, because Helena's instinct had demonstrated repeatedly that it perceived what instruments could not measure. 3 days passed, the sea alternating between calms and crossing currents but always maintaining precise direction, the nights drawing constellations none of the sailors recognized, with that specific strangeness of the sky at latitudes never before inhabited. Makeda said she saw green shadows beneath the waves, as if submerged forests were watching them from the deep, with that sharpened perception of those who have been awakened by something and therefore see layers that others merely walk upon. On the morning of the 4th day, the mist lifted like a veil over the horizon, the sea growing dense, the sound of the waves deeper, as if they were entering the territory of the silence that precedes revelation. Alexander ordered part of the sails lowered and pressed forward, guided by instinct and by Helena's gaze, which remained motionless at the prow. Cliffs of bluish stone emerged from the mists, tall and austere, with fissures where the sea roared like a living creature, the sound echoing through the bluffs with that reverberation of places that have spent centuries learning to amplify. The vessels followed the winding coast until they found a sheltered cove, a natural amphitheater where the sea calmed into gentle eddies, the rocks covered with golden lichens gleaming beneath an oblique sun, the air carrying the scent of pine and sea salt that was at once new and familiar, like the smell of a place memory preserves from a life not yet lived. Alexander ordered the anchors cast with that decisiveness of one who has arrived at the point he had been seeking without knowing exactly what form it would take when found. Helena descended to the dinghy with Makeda and Amina, and when her feet touched the dark sand of the beach, the sensation that passed through her body was not that of arriving somewhere new, but of returning to a place that had always been hers, which had only been waiting for her arrival to begin existing completely. The refuge of the tides and the whispers of the ancient land. There are places that exist before the names given to them, that would exist had no human tongue ever been invented to name them. That cove was one such place, and recognizing it was like recognizing a truth one had always known, but for which one had never found the words to speak. The first dawn over the new land brought a soft, almost timid light that spread in silver veils across the mist-covered hillsides, with that delicacy of mornings that know what they are revealing must be received gradually to be completely received. The cove breathed like a living being, the waters striking the rocks in a constant rhythm that was not merely sound but measurement of something, a counting of time by a method exceeding any human clock. Alexander observed with the eyes of one who recognizes a promise. Here the sea rests without extinguishing itself, as if it were guarding something. The sailors disembarked carrying provisions and tools, building a camp among the rocks where the wind did not reach with such force, and the Oasis of Moonlight and the Aletheia remained anchored side by side, floating on the tides like two sentinels from different worlds that had arrived at the same point because that point had been calling them long enough for them finally to hear. Makeda walked along the beach collecting shells of unusual coloring, shades of violet and green, as if the sea there reflected not only the sky, but also the dreams of those who slept in its depths. "It is as if the whole world has stopped to receive us," she said. Helena smiled. "Or perhaps we are simply returning to a place we never knew was ours." Alexander and part of the crew explored the nearby cliffs, finding deep caves covered with inscriptions that time had not erased, spiral symbols, human figures with raised arms, drawings of primitive vessels marked into the walls with an almost sacred precision. The captain touched one of the carvings and felt the cold of the stone pass through his skin with that specific sensation of touching something that has existed longer than any available frame of reference can measure. These peoples knew the sea before us, and perhaps they were awaiting our return. There, the past was not dead, only sleeping, waiting for whoever might arrive with sufficient attentiveness to recognize that they had been expected. That evening, Helena gathered the group around the central fire with that quality of gatherings that are not formally convened, but which happen when someone with natural authority simply begins to speak and others simply listen. This place has a soul. I feel that the stones hold stories, and that the wind speaks to those who know how to listen. If we have come this far, it was not by chance. There is something here that needs to be remembered. Her words spread through the camp like a balm over the exhaustion of a long crossing, even the roughest sailors feeling an invisible weight dissolve from their shoulders with that specific dissolution that happens when one arrives at the place one was meant to arrive. Makeda and Amina climbed to the top of a nearby hill, and from there they saw the sea reflecting the stars, with the glow of the fire below appearing as a lighthouse between two infinities, that of the sky above and that of the ocean below. "I feel that I have been here before," said the princess. Amina placed her hand on her shoulder. "Perhaps every land holds an echo of our origins, princess. The world is a circle, and every step is a return." From the caves came a distant sound, something between chant and lament, with that quality of sounds that have no identifiable human source, yet which the body recognizes as communication rather than accident. On the beach, Alexander and Helena watched the fire burn with that silent companionship of those who have shared enough for the silence between them to carry the quality of a conversation that continues beneath the words. "If we find traces of those who once lived here, I promise to respect every stone, every sign." Helena nodded. The true discoverer is not the one who takes possession, but the one who listens. The sound of the waves blended with the crackling of the wood, and the starlit sky curved above them like a sacred ceiling that no human architecture could replicate without losing precisely what made it sacred, that vastness which includes without imprisoning, which embraces without containing. It was the first night in a new dwelling, but also the beginning of something greater. The birth of an invisible bond between the travelers and the spirit of a continent that had been watching them in silence since the beginning of time, waiting for them to arrive sufficiently awake to realize they had been expected. In the next episode, the land that sheltered the ships through that first night will begin to reveal its deeper layers. The inscriptions in the caves will ask to be read. The whispers carried on the wind will ask to be heard, and something that has lain dormant beneath those stones for a time exceeding any recorded memory will begin to stir with the arrival of those who were summoned for that very awakening. Makeda will discover that her presence in that place is no accident, that the songs her mother sang to her in childhood contained, in a language she had not yet learned to decipher, coordinates for a place she had never visited but had always known. And Helena will come to understand that the journey toward Thule is not merely a search for what Tiphys described. It is the fulfillment of something that was promised before any of those who promised it knew they were making a promise. The aurora that will illuminate the second morning in that sacred cove will be unlike all the auroras that came before. And everyone will know, without needing anyone to explain it, that the world they will encounter that day is not the same world they encountered the day before.